Hello. Last week I talked about Lewis's love of merriment, especially as a form of joy which is often shared with other people. And today I want to look a bit more at that idea of the shared joy within a circle of friends. So think for a moment of that beautiful picture of perfect contentment in the company of friends near the end of Prince Caspian. At the end of a long day when the liberation of Narnia has been accomplished, and at the end of a great magical feasting which completed it, we have this wonderful sentence: the best thing of all about this feast was that there was no breaking up or going away. But as the talk grew quieter and slower, one after another would begin to nod and finally drop off to sleep with feet towards the fire and good friends on either side, till at last there was silence all round the circle, and the chattering of water over stone at the ford of Baruna could be heard once more. This is the shared joy, shared in a circle of good friends round the campfire in contentment and togetherness and peace. And presiding over it, because it's he who's initiated it, is the lion, the highest of all high kings, who does not slumber or sleep. All night, Aslan and the moon gazed upon each other with joyful and unblinking eyes. And then think about how in the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, after Eustace has been delivered from his dragonish shape by Aslan, we're told, "Great was the rejoicing when Edmund and the restored Eustace walked into the breakfast circle round the campfire." And again, the circle round the fire is an emblem of shalom, the shared salvation and peace and joy. To trace back over that story, the joyous reunion of Lucy and Edmund with Caspian and Reepicheep on the Narnian ship was spoilt by just one person, Eustace, and he constantly strikes a sour note, carping and sulking and mean and at odds with everyone, and there's no shared joy for him. And his self-chosen isolation becomes a physical one when he makes off into the mountains on Dragon Island with the purpose of avoiding work with the others. And his descent into the hell of himself is shown outwardly by his descent into a hot, lifeless valley, a valley of death, in fact. He watches a dragon die in front of him, and then, sheltering in the dragon's cave, he becomes himself a dragon. He consumes the dead dragon carcass. But it all turns out for his redemption. Being a dragon's not all it's cracked up to be. It's a curse, an evil enchantment. And before long, he realises he no longer wants to get his own back on Caspian and Edmund and the others. He becomes intensely lonely, and he longs for ordinary human friendship, for talk, sharing and laughter. But he knows he's cut off from all of that, probably forever. And in his terrible loneliness, he gains some insight into himself. He weeps alone. And of all strange things, still in his dragon shape, he doesn't jump straight to his salvation by Aslan. First, he's initiated into the joy of helping others, bringing them meat to eat, which he's killed, carrying in a fallen pine tree to make a new mast for the ship that's been all but shipwrecked in a storm, and providing fire and warmth for the company by his fiery breath. And it says the pleasure, quite new to him, of being liked, and still more of liking other people, was what kept Eustace from despair. And there's reconciliation between him and his former enemy, Reepicheep the mouse, who would leave the merry circle at the campfire, that joyous circle again, to sit with him and comfort him. And finally, after his encounter with Aslan, who frees him at last from the enchantment, I repeat, great was the rejoicing when Edmund and the restored Eustace walked into the breakfast circle round the campfire. And that in turn, of course, looks forward to the wondrous time at the end of the story when Eustace and his cousins Edmund and Lucy together have breakfast with Aslan, sitting round the fire on the beach at the world's end. It's partly the shared joy that's attractive to others, I think. Remember, it was when the teacher looked out of the window in Prince Caspian and saw the divine revellers singing up the street that she felt the stab of joy go through her heart, and she jumped down and joined them.